So thank you everyone for coming to AQ Adaptive Intelligence. And today for Thinking Thursdays, we have an incredible futuristic guest for you. So the man of the hour is called Rudy Hoffman, and he is quite the futurist. So Rudy specializes in cryogenics. So as many of you know, cryogenics is the act of freezing someone before death or even after death in the hopes that in the future, some sort of technology will emerge where of whatever they died for, what they were going to die from, can someday in the future be cured. They'll then be able to basically time capsule themselves so that in the future, assuming everything works out, society doesn't collapse or anything, that then they can be cured of whatever illness or disease they have. So a little bit about our guest. Rudy Hoffman has been doing this for several years now, and he's a speaker, he's an author. He wrote the book, The Affordable Immortal, and he's spoken at many transhumanist events as well. And when he's not actively trying to change the world, he's really good at dressing up in various different cute and hilarious costumes, and many of which you will see here. When he's not doing that, he also is a traveler and he goes to exotic places. So I always love travelers because I'm also a traveler myself. And when he's not traveling or dressing up, he's dressing up with his puppies or just hanging out with his puppies. He has many of them. And surprisingly, one of them is in cryo sleep as we speak. So he had a puppy and he'll tell us more about his puppy and how it's doing. And so the topic of today is affordable immortality. And so without further ado, I will be bringing to you Rudy Hoffman.
Let me fly through this 10 or 15-minute presentation because I think it'll resonate with you. The whole concept here is we don't want to tell you something you don't know. I want you to be able, we want to show you that which we know to be real and see if you can make your own determinations as to where the direction is heading. This is a presentation we did for the RADFest, which stands for Revolution Against Aging and Death. About 1,800 people were here virtually to do this presentation late November of last year. And so basically, there's two simple ideas I want to make sure we get across. One is that cryonics is a legitimate, though currently not proven, life extension strategy. The other is really simple. That is that it's often affordable through the leverage of life insurance. So there's the two takeaways. And here, let's begin. This is a little bit more about Rudy, more than you maybe really want to know, but this is also explains why I am so passionate about this, why I feel very strongly that this is an incredible technology that many people, maybe including you, might be interested in taking advantage of. My wife is signed up for cryonics. All of my 3 dogs are signed up for cryonics, including this one right here, who's literally, as we speak, is up at the Cryonics Institute in Michigan. You ask me how she's doing. Well, we don't know. We do know that she got a really good cryopreservation. That's better than most humans get, because you can do really good cryopreservations on pets, because you can take them while they're alive, do euthanasia on them, and within a matter of 15 seconds to the time that she was euthanized, she was already being cooled. She already had the blood thinner in her to reduce clotting. Credibility-wise, this is kind of my niche market. You mentioned I've been doing this a few years. Actually, I've been doing investments in life insurance 43 years. I've been signed up for cryonics since 1994, 28 years. I've become the leading writer of life insurance in the world in this market. About 60 to 64% of the folks who are signed up on the entire planet for cryonics have done it with the help of Hoffman Financial Engineering. Very possibly people who are listening to this right now or will be in the future are clients, which is cool. I'm licensed in pretty much every state there is, except New York, where I'm licensed but want to not be because the regulatory environment's strange there. Basically, maybe you agree with me and see if this makes sense to you. There's pretty good reasons for us to believe that the future is going to be just amazing. It's going to be complicated, it's going to be confusing, but it's also going to be amazing. If you go back far enough in history and look at the arc of history, you can kind of see how much better life is getting for the average person. And I really want people like you and me to be there for it. But the challenge is we haven't yet figured out how to lick aging and death, the big elephants in the room. We need a bridge to that technology, and that's what I want to talk about in terms of cryonics. Little credibility, just really excited about 2 books. First one, The Affordable Immortal. This book took me a ridiculous 17 years to get done, but it's because I went through 10 iterations and really wanted it to be good. The Affordable Immortal, maybe you can beat death and taxes. It's now turned into an Audible book. We got it in an Audible format, which is going to be great. It'll be on this week. Also, this coming out this week is the Cryonics Estate Planning Handbook, which is a book that's designed to basically talk about the idea of taking some of your assets with you to the future. And I love what my editor and publisher did on the front cover there. I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, those books are available, and we'll talk more about that later. I don't know if any of you remember Star Trek.
Yeah, I love Star Trek.
I grew up on that. Star Trek fan, Gabriel?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up on that. I hope the future is like Star Trek. Looking forward to it.
That is, yeah. Well, many of us are who are now cryonicists kind of grew up on Star Trek. I saw Gene Roddenberry quite a few times, and some of the other.
I would say that Star Trek predicted crypto, because if you look at like their financial system, they all run on credits. They're all like these digital cloud-based credits, and it's basically just like crypto.
We're close to getting, flip phones are going to be even better, because our phones now are actually better than the little communicators they had. Some things we don't have. But one of the things that I think they really got wrong, and maybe you'll agree with me, do you remember people who would always die on the show? Usually the guys in the red jerseys were pretty much the fodder. And then our doctor would say, "He's dead, Jim." And when I did this presentation originally, I had 45 seconds of little, "He's dead, Jim. He's dead, Jim. Jim, this is dead." And all these various clips. So the point being, we think that's a kind of a erroneous idea, because it assumes that 1 minute you're alive and the next nanosecond you're completely dead. That a really binary thing, which of course was not the case at all. Death is more like a definition depending on the technology that you can bring to the table. We have literally thousands of people who are walking around today who are pronounced dead erroneously, and they were then kind of brought back because death is like a process. And if we can interfere in that process early enough, we think that there's a good chance that future technology can redefine. He's not really dead permanently. He's dead by the standards of the current medicine. That's why we got that screen there. You can read that on your own. Basically, this is the definition of cryonics, and I think it's pretty straightforward. The purpose here is to save precious brain pattern, to save your life. And we think you're important. I know there's 8 billion of us, or 7 or 8 billion, and that's a lot. But each one of us is kind of like a library. We have our own uniquenesses, and the 1.5 kilograms mass of matter between your ears is very similar to mine. And there's a consciousness in there that I want to find a way to take the consciousness that's in my brain and share through this verbiage to get to the consciousness that's in your brain, to share this cool idea so that maybe that brain pattern can be preserved for the future. So I think that's important work.
Yeah, it definitely would be very important as well in the future. And I will say, we had a guest recently who was dead for over 6 hours, and he was not on any cryonics, but he came back to life after 6 hours, and he shared his whole experience. So if you guys want to check out that video, go check that out as well. Just go look on our channel.
That is most interesting. May I ask, Gabriel, was he cooled down at all, or was it room temperature? What was the circumstance?
I don't believe so. No, I don't believe he was, but I'll have to ask him that. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's most interesting. As we continue here, I think that'll make sense. That'll be relevant to the presentation. I love this graph. You guys may have seen this. This is by Tim Urban, and you may have read the blog "Wait But Why," which is a brilliant blog that Tim Urban does. This is kind of the human condition written small, very similar to basically what's happening. People have simply been marching over the edge of death, period. And that's the way it's been. So the whole concept behind modern medicine, indeed cryonics, is that it's a bridge across that chasm. So it's a pretty clear metaphor. And it's not a perfect bridge, but it's a good bridge. And I would love to be able to show you my dog, put that dog pic that had been cryopreserved and brought back, and show him in the front of the screen here. Or to be able to show you pictures of people who have been cryopreserved down to liquid nitrogen temperature, came back, and they're fine. The technology is simply not there to do that yet. I want to be very clear. We don't get ahead of the facts. We do not exaggerate. We believe in an epistemology of reality, authenticity, hard science, evidence. So we can show you the proof of concept, but right now the cryonics, and there's a lot of good proof of concept we'll show you here. But the reality is cryonics is not yet to the point where we can document it works completely with human beings. But there's a strong proof of concept. See if these ideas make sense to you. One, we do know that basically it's mainstream medicine. It's not even remarkable anymore that we can freeze embryos, eggs, ovum, and there's thousands of people who are literally frozen eggs, frozen sperm, frozen fertilized eggs that are walking around today. This is equally important. This is some published literature showing that if you happen to be a worm, we got a pretty good idea that cryonics works. If you're a C. elegans worm and you're about that long, you can. We've repeatable experiments in which Natasha Vita-Moore and her colleagues won. The C. elegans worms came back, which is important. Equally important, their brain pattern was intact. They aren't really smart dudes. They basically can be taught to do one thing, go a certain direction at a T-square, or respond to a smell in a certain way. But remarkably, after cryopreservation, they remembered their training. So we think that's, again, pretty strong proof of principle that brain patterns can go through cryopreservation. Equally important, this is why I was asking Gabriel about the cooling down factor. This thing called therapeutic hypothermia, which again is mainstream medicine, in which patients are cooled down 10 or 15 or 20 degrees because it enables the operation to stop their heart, stop their lungs, basically stop pretty much everything while the operation is going. Pretty simple. And equally important, this is exactly what Gabriel was talking about. In this case, these are people who have been revived after being clinically dead, who are cooled in snow or ice. And here's a picture of one of them. This gentleman was basically, I believe, about 3.5 hours in a snowbank and came back with his brain pattern intact, and he was fine. It's simply common sense that we know that cooling things down slows biological activity. That's why we put food in the refrigerator. That's why a lettuce that's been sitting out in the counter rots, whereas puts in the refrigerator will stays longer. That's just well-known fact. No presentation on cryonics course would be complete without this iconic photo. This shows the difference between kidneys, a kidney that's been frozen on the left, or even as laypersons, we can see there's a lot of ice, and ice is damage. Ice is bad for biological tissues, obviously. But the new technology is a thing called vitrification, in which the water is replaced with a biological antifreeze, basically. A bunch of iterations that have gone through. The current one is called M2000 at Alcor. For a long time, it was quite pricey. It was about $1,000 a liter. And a full body cryopreservation was taking 1,000 liters, 50 liters. So the technology is improved now to, again, reduce the damage to virtually zero ice damage on vitrified tissue. So that's kind of exciting. There's a lot of organizations working on making cryonics real throughout the planet. Here's a couple of them that you may recognize. Alcor, of course, is one of the best well-known. I've been personally signed with Alcor since 94. But cryonics is also huge in China. There's 2 big cryonics organizations in China now that have a lot of funding behind them. The Cryonics Institute in Michigan is another fine organization. Half my clients go with. 21st Century Medicine is a lab in Rancho Cucamonga. The Organ Preservation Alliance is trying to pull together a lot of mainstream pharma groups and DARPA money to do research on organ preservation for obvious reasons. So this is helpful. This is a group of scientists who basically said that cryonics has a good chance of working even with the technology we have today. But even if it worked 100% of the time and was proven to work, but it took $3 million or $5 million, that would be pretty much a moot point for most of us. Would you guys agree about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to make it affordable, right?
Absolutely, which kind of brings us to the next part of this presentation. And my focus in this arena is I'm not a lab scientist trying to figure out how to vitrify tissue and bring back kidneys. Now, my clients, like Dr. Greg Fahey and Dr. Brian Woke, are some of the leading researchers in the world doing exactly that. My focus is the financial piece of this, which is why I've tried to focus on making this affordable and practical and pragmatic for normal folks. So the leverage of life insurance is the key here. Turns out that most folks, about 90% of us, use life insurance to fund the cost of the cryopreservation. Now, we try to be completely transparent here. That does require that you be insurable. In other words, if you got 3 forms of cancer and you're going to die, no insurance company wants to cover you. But if you're reasonably healthy and ideally under age 65 or 75 or so, there's a pretty good chance that you can use life insurance to do this. We should also know there's membership dues, which are in addition to the cost of the insurance. So here's a couple examples. These are actual real world people that we've done these programs on. They didn't put their name here, or these are not their pictures, but these are actual real world numbers. Here's a PhD student who's 27. He's doing a 20-year level term policy for $400,000, which is more than enough for Alcor, even full body, for $344 a year. So that's about $1 a day plus the cost of his dues to be a fully funded cryo. If he signs up with the Cryonics Institute, which the dues are $120 a year, so literally for about $1.05 a day, which is people spend more than that on a cup of coffee at Starbucks. And to have a chance to see the year 3000 for the money that you blow at Starbucks seems like a pretty good value proposition to me. Now, some people prefer, and it's smarter to have what's called a permanent policy that's designed where the premium will not ever go up. In fact, the policy will pay itself for a time after a while. And it also accumulates a cash value. This guy's a 29-year-old software engineer, and investing $185 a month, but he not only has a $300,000 life insurance policy, the cash value projects about $1.7 million that he does not have to die to get at age 100. So there's a cash accumulation component to this permanent policy. That makes sense. Here's another gal who is a real estate investor, and she's pretty healthy. In this case, in my book, I explain this person has a 8-figure net worth. So she could pay cash, but it still makes sense often to use the leverage of life insurance. So she could pay this $300,000 policy off with a single payment, for instance, of $65,000, or pay it off over 7 years with about $12,000, or pay annually about $2,600 a year. So there's multiple ways to get this policy paid off. And even if you're older, this guy's 70 years old, and $160,000 of coverage is still about $7,700 a year. Not a non-trivial amount of money, I admit. But any of you know people who have big boats? Any of you know folks who?
Yeah. I sure do.
But $600, $700, $800 a month on membership in clubs. People spend money on all sorts of things that basically could be redirected if their value system was such that, hey, if this would save my life, people tend to find the money for that which is really important to them. So that is helpful to know. And there's also a new funding mechanism that we're quite excited about, because it turns out sometimes people don't want to do life insurance, or they simply can't do life insurance. They're uninsurable. Let's say this guy is not in good health, but he's got a few pennies. And as people get old, they tend to accumulate some wealth. He can redirect that money into a guaranteed annuity, which is a different way to go back. He can use a variable annuity that will enable him to maintain the control of his money, but has a guaranteed death benefit, so that if he dies, the money is guaranteed to go to the Cryonics organization. They're happy to accept that because it's got a guarantee on it. And so it's kind of a win-win proposition. And the actual growth on the money is the area of 8 or 9%, which is better than he's probably getting elsewhere. So in essence, he's kind of funding his cryopreservation by simply redirecting money that was in one pocket. He's putting it in a different pocket that now has a guaranteed death benefit with no underwriting on that annuity.
We actually talked a little bit about that, Rudy, when we first spoke over the phone. I made the suggestion, well, could you technically get the money that you would have gotten for that life insurance policy and take it out and then buy crypto with it, and then while you're in cryo sleep, you'll just let your crypto money just skyrocket into the millions and millions. And you said that actually some people are actually doing that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Gabriel, because there's quite a bit of overlap between the cryptocurrency community and cryonics, including the fact that the de facto chairman of the Alcor board is Ralph Merkle.
Uh-huh.
Some of you guys may know that Merkle developed the Merkle trees, which I believe are the foundational mathematics behind cryptocurrency. Really way smart guy. Spent a lot of time with Ralph, and he's a really brilliant human being. The Hal Finney is a name that you also might recognize. The first crypto transfer. Hal Finney actually used cryptocurrency and Bitcoin to help fund his cryopreservation. And I think his family still has money growing in cryptocurrency. So it's kind of a situation where that exact concept you used is.
What year did he start doing that?
Al Finney was I think he was cryopreserved in like about 2011. I mean, Satoshi and cryptocurrency started like in 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's going to be a very happy camper when he wakes up.
Yeah, there's a reasonable chance that, these guys, that was back when Bitcoin was literally like, a nickel or a penny.
Yeah. It's, oh my gosh. And it's at like 58,000 today.
Yeah.
For just one.
And the guy who was the president of the Cryonics Institute is named Ben Best. Sweet little, wonderful, sweet scientific guy. He's very, very rigorous about his science. He's really into anti-aging, and he's also into cryptocurrency. For years, he kept talking about cryptocurrency, and every time he'd go to a conference, he'd get up there and rant and roar about, cryptocurrency. And we all were shaking our heads saying, what the hell is this guy talking about? This seems like some stupid fad. I have no interest in this whatsoever. Eventually, he finally got to me, and took me forever to finally put some money in, and I'm glad I did. Gee whiz, if I could have listened to even 2 or 3 or 4 years later, tens of millions of dollars.
I know, right? I know. But I definitely want to talk more about this. Let's go ahead and finish up your presentation.
Yeah, hindsight obviously is always 20/20.
Right.
So anyway, the point being, it's possible to do cryonics estate planning, and that is, you can do cryptocurrency as one of those funding vehicles. But the main thing is we got to find a way to get not just your assets, but let's get your ass to the future. That I'm not trying to be overly cute there, but it turns out many of our people who are sometimes some wealthy dudes give me a call, and they seem to be more interested in trying to get their assets preserved than they are making their basic arrangements, which is kind of getting the cart in front of the horse before the cart, because, the first and foremost thing is to find a way to basically get signed up for cryopreservation yourself, and then do the cryopreservation, the asset planning piece. And I say that having signed up close to a couple thousand people and found out what actually works in the real world for making the necessary arrangements. So those are the 2 basic takeaways. And what I'd be happy to do, and I want to leave the screen up for a moment, because as cost effective as these books are, you can go on Amazon and get them for $13, or you get the Kindle download for $4, or even better, if you write me at rudyhoffman.com, I'll send you a PDF of The Affordable Immortal.
I definitely recommend reading that book. I've read it myself, and it's a good read. And it's not very long. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a good read. It's a good read.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. And I'm really excited because literally as of today, it is now in the Audible format. I mean, literally the guy who did the Audible.
Oh, I like that.
It turns out it's a big deal to get a book in the Audible format. You gotta jump through a bunch of hoops and pay a bunch of money, but it's worth it, because a lot of people, maybe you are guys like I am, where you basically, you read a lot, but the reality is you also do a bunch of other. To be able to listen to something while you're bicycling or exercising is just a brilliant mechanism to improve your brain. I wanted to make sure that my book, and this right now maybe my second book, will soon be in Audible format.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of audiobooks. I work out and listen to an audiobook, or I'll like go walking and listen to one. It's super convenient, and like you can even like listen to one if you're driving.
Absolutely.
And I'm not the fastest reader either.
Why would you convert all the time we spend in a car to a chance to improve your brain and get better and learn stuff? And so many smart people like you folks are doing. That's why I wanted to have this in Audible format. So anyway, if you want to email me, I'll be happy to send you a PDF of that book. And also, if you are interested in finding out, getting a quote and see what options may be available, that is really simple as well. You simply go to rudyhoffman.com, where you'll see this picture and a slightly younger picture of Rudy Hoffman from your upper left part of your screen, and go fill out the quote request. Go to the quote request tab and put a little information in there, and then that way we can get back with you and give you some different options and rates. And we're not going to push you. It's not, if it's a fit match or a fit right now, that's okay. And if it's not, that's completely all right too. right now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but we've got more people we've got more folks that we can, quite frankly,
Oh, wow.
grace over, and that is, so we're not pushing you to do this thing, but if it's a fit, that's fine, and at least you'll know what the options are to see if it could be.
I mean, it's a good option to have. I mean, because right now the only option you have is die.
Yes.
So it's good to be like die or maybe not die. Even if it's like a 1% chance, it's like I would probably take a 1% chance.
That's very reasonable, and it's hard to know what the percentages are, but we think the if you make good choices. Now, obviously, if you sign up for cryonics and then go climb a mountain and fall in a crevasse and we can't get you, or that's not going to work. There's a lot of circumstances in which cryonics cannot work.
Right. And I also want to say, like, I'm getting nothing out of promoting this, but I just think it's good to have options,
That's right.
I'm just a realist. I'm practical. It's good to have a new option finally. And of all the billions of years or however long we've been around, it's good to finally have maybe another option.
Precisely. Well, this is the closing slide here. Basically, I would be, absolutely thrilled to have you or your listeners or anybody who's hearing this take advantage of this technology and join us in the future and join me in the future, because it's going to be amazing. And we have no idea. There's just incredible things that are coming down the pike that could make our lives so joyous and blissful and fun. And we want to be there for that. So we want to reverse aging. We want to have age attenuation strategies. But even if you're involved with those already, you aren't doing everything you can do to save your life if you don't check out the cryonics option. So that's my message to you. Hopefully that has resonated in your heart and your head. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Cool. And we would love to see you face to face a little bit more here. If you could close that off, we can
absolutely.
I'll
do the stop sharing and see if that.
Yeah, let's do it. Awesome. There he is. I definitely want to talk more about like that cool hack of you, because that's genius. Whoever thought of like buying a bunch of crypto and then going into cryo sleep, that's pretty smart,
Yeah, well, may not be as smart if only if it works. And
right, exactly.
The longer we can wait before we have to go into cryonics or the cryo sleep or the doer nap or whatever you want to call it, the better the chance it's going to work. Its technology continues to improve. While early vitrification was a good concept, but the early vitrification solutions had a high viscosity. It's put into our body and brain when it's cold to cool us down, but that made it really thick. And so they were not always able to get complete permeation or molarity or concentration in our brain where it needs to be, as well as the rest of our body. But the new technology, the newer cryoprotective agents, is not as viscous even when it's cold, and is generating complete vitrification instead of having spots in our body and brain that are frozen, which is bad.
So with the vitrification process, is there any damage that's done to the tissue if you try to unfreeze it?
Yeah, that's actually a surprisingly perceptive question, because there is a thing called reperfusion or rewarming damage. And, people, you might think, well, why is Rudy going on to these, dwelling on all these negatives about cryonics? He's supposed to be, promoting and selling this thing.
Right.
That's why I actually signed up, because they did not give me some kind of pat me on the head saying, oh, we got all the problems figured out. There's still some significant problems. Vitrification, I could talk about that a minute.
Yeah.
Vitrification solves the fracturing, basically solves the water crystallizing. When you put a strawberry in the freezer and you take it out, it's not the same. Basically, the water, we're both 70, 80% water, whether you're a strawberry or a human being. And when that water freezes, it does some really bad things to the cells. And so the vitrification of a strawberry or a kidney or a human being stops that freezing damage. Additional types of damage that will occur. One is a thing called microfracturing or fracturing once you get colder than about minus 130 degrees Celsius. And that microfracturing occurs even in fully vitrified tissue. In other words, there are little capillaries that make us up. We have 100,000 kilometers of vasculature in our system, and some of them get off kilter. It would actually take a true nanotechnology system to go in there and fix those at that level. But we think that future technology can infer where things were supposed to be. So that is the other side of that is there's a emerging new cryonics option that's still being researched and will be available at some point. It's called intermediate temperature storage. Intermediate temperature storage sounds like it'll be, warm, but it's not. It's warmer than -196 degrees Celsius that liquid nitrogen storage is at, but it's about -130, which is still cold enough to stop biological deterioration, but warmer than the glass transition temperature at which we get that fracturing. That is probably the future of tech. We think that if we can manage that, we may be able to bring kidneys, bring organs and human beings, including brains and full people, back without full nanotechnology. Perfusion damage, there's a number of different things that occur because even though the biological activity ceases altogether, when you go back to rewarm people, then all the rewarmed tissue, then it goes up in temperature where things can get out of kilter. And so it's incredibly challenging. You'd think it'd be pretty easy to, freeze like a kidney and make it work. But my friend Brian Woke and my friend Dr. Greg May have been working on this for 40 years. They only recently are doing published research showing they can consistently do viable, reversible organ cryopreservation. It's hard. Sorry about that. I wish it was easy.
Yeah. Well, it sounds hard, but it might be possible if we keep working at it, right?
Yes. And the other thing is we're finally getting a lot more research, be it money and research grants and organizations in academia working on these problems. It's because, and they're not trying to do it for cryonics as much. They're trying to do organ preservation because that's obvious societal good. It's not a bunch of rich tech weenies freezing themselves. That's the popular perception of cryonics. It's a bunch of rich bastards who are just thinking about themselves, trying to cryopreserve themselves. Organ preservation, in contrast, does not have that negative perception. It's obvious that would help everybody, save 100,000 lives in the United States alone.
At AQ, we tend to focus more on the neurological aspect of things, primarily the brain, obviously. What are the effects that, say if we couldn't figure out how to save the kidneys or the heart or the lungs, but we could figure out a way to save the brain? Do you think it'd be possible for some sort of cloning process to happen to clone, just a body without a brain, I guess, and then just plop in your brain?
And that's why about half the people who are signed up at Alcor are neuros, who basically head only.
Oh, really?
And that is cheaper, by the way. The assumption is that any technology that can fix the damage caused by cryopreservation and what you died of can simply grow you a new body, or many of us also think you might want to be uploaded into a robot or software.
Right.
Basically change substrates because this substrate really has a lot of glitches.
Mm-hmm. And that might be possible with Neuralink once it goes full blown. Potential,
that
right?
Neuralink technology is very exciting. Many of us who are cryonicists are very enthusiastic about a lot of what Musk is doing, but especially the Neuralink idea, because that is the early pioneering thing of figuring out how to upload or download our consciousness.
Yeah, definitely. Or at least the patterns of correct neurological function so that we could then maybe go in and repair some of the damage from the freezing, right?
Yes, exactly. And all this is going to be non-trivial. We're not trying to pretend this is easy stuff, but neither is heart operations, and heart operations are done all the time. Neither the technology that's enabling all of us to hear this conversation and see this video is literally has to have thousands, maybe hundreds, maybe millions of things all working together. Of course, it took us an hour and a half to get our technology. The point being, human beings are clever enough, at least fortunately, maybe I'm not, but other people are clever enough to figure out how to make stuff work. And betting on cryonics is betting on human ingenuity. It's what smart, positive-minded people who care about humanity in the future do.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of using technology that can actually help biology, right? Because if we marry the two together, it's more sustainable versus just having technology that dominates or destroys nature, right? So I love that there's a push for preservation of life within technology, and with cryonics we have that. So I deeply value that myself.
I'm glad you got that, and I hope our listeners and other viewers get that the technological components here have to be legitimate. The funding has to be legitimate, but the main thing is the intent here is really kind and powerful and profound. This is basically about saving lives, saving maybe your life, saving the precious uniqueness that has become you, that will become worm food unless we do something, unless we figure out some things.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We don't want you to become worm food. We think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, and even if people can't say afford to do the whole thing for whatever reason, maybe they didn't get crypto and they didn't do all the life insurance stuff and all that stuff, but the technology would still help because, say for example, in the future, right, we'll have ambulances with a cryonics machine already built into it. So if somebody gets hit by a car and they're in critical condition, then they can put the person in there and cryo-freeze them, slow down their metabolism so that it buys them more time to get the critical care that they need, right?
That is such a great observation. And interesting enough, that's already happening. That's one of the reasons DARPA has committed $100 million to basically to organ freezing and basically cooling people down, because they want to be able to cool down soldiers who get traumatized to give them an extra 24 or 48, 72 hours so to get them where they need to be, and so they can cool them down.
Yeah.
And so that's actually already happening, where the cooling function, now not to cryonic temperatures yet, but they're using these exact ideas in mainstream medicine increasingly. So that's a great observation.
Yeah, well, I was a paramedic, so I got a lot of.
Oh, that's so cool!
Yeah.
How long ago was that, Gabriel?
Oh God, that was maybe 5 years ago. It was a while ago. Yeah, it was a while ago. Maybe more.
A lot of interesting stuff. Part of a lot of traumatizing
stuff. Some, yeah, but it helps to have a solid mindset. It's I'm there to help people, as many people as I can. That's the goal.
That's the plan for sure.
Yeah, and that's what the reason I did it is because I love doing mission trips and I love going and actually helping people in other countries that maybe can't get any kind of care at all, right?
Oh,
and it can be simple
brilliant.
simple things, and if they don't get that, they'll die. Say for example, they have gangrene and they don't know what's going on. They just see a spot that looks kind of weird because they cut themselves and nothing seems to be working right. It's to have that knowledge is you could save that person's life, because if you don't, it'll go septic and they'll die. Right, but they can't afford it, so they don't prioritize it. So it's
I got
the
that
challenge.
Quick question: I don't know if you're in this format. Do you have? Are there Q&As that are coming in?
Yeah, we'll get to that right now.
Adaptive intelligence. You searched for more. You wanted to become the best version of yourself. Your search is over. And the technology finally exists. To go beyond limits. Your time has come. Unleash your potential. AQ. Adaptive intelligence.
All right, so do we have any good questions? Or what questions do we have, I should say?
There are no bad questions.
Right?
I actually had a quick...
yeah, go ahead.
I had a quick question. Can you guys hear me okay? I left my little headset at the house.
I can hear you quite clearly.
Cool. So we talked... Well, you mentioned in the past that so far we've only been able to do animal studies because right now it's not
I guess, legal to do it on humans. But what about the whole corporal punishment? Aren't there some states that actually, I mean, they do, I guess, euthanasia on humans? I don't know if it's Texas or what, but I would think as far as moving forward, and this may sound really super dark, but could we potentially start with, I guess, people who are on death row and then maybe work at doing, like, introducing them to cryogenics?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Lauren, right?
Yeah, yes.
And because it does, last year was a red letter year for the following reason, because cryonics has been around since the mid 60s. And Alcor is 48 years old this year. Cryonics Institute, about 43 years old. And for a lot of years, we kept thinking, when can we use assisted suicide or euthanasia to get better cryopreservations? And this last year, it actually happened for the first time in California. That'd be one of my clients. Basically,
that's awesome. I mean, I guess, well,
yeah, he got a good cryopreservation because he could do it under controlled circumstances. And there's about 17 states now that have some type of assisted suicide or euthanasia type laws, but most of them have a whole lot of fine print that makes it pretty challenging. You can't just like go be in Florida and go to Washington or Oregon where there's euthanasia laws and do yourself in. You got to be there a resident for 6 or 12 months. You also have to be really terminally super ill. So it's getting better, but it's not quite there yet. But that's a great observation.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
I have a comment.
Mr. Less, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been interested in Kurzweil for years. I think back in the 90s, I started learning about him.
Brilliant man. I imagine you read his books, The Age of Intelligent Machines, The Age of Spiritual Machines, Live Long Enough to Live Forever.
I haven't read all of his books, but I've listened to a lot of what he said. I do have a couple of his books, Age of Spiritual Machines and The Singularity is Near. But to me, it's not realistic. What I see happening is that there's too many threats to civilization. And if civilization crashes and burns, cryonics is going to go with it. And we're killing off biological ecosystems. We're losing species by like about 200 a day. And humans are just another species. And there's tipping points that we're approaching that are going to be very challenging. And the current system is not making preparations for saving life on Earth. They're just continuing to consume resources. There's more and more energies being used. Even the development of alternative energy takes fossil fuel to produce. The mining of rare earth elements is destructive to the environment. And climate change it's not really climate change. What it is it's climate chaos. We're entering climate chaos. In fact, we're actually in climate chaos, but it's growing exponentially. Look what happened to Texas. So
there's some existential challenges and some existential risks out there, Les. I would absolutely agree with you. I would not sure I completely agree with you that the world is getting worse. I think there's some pretty good evidence that, as documented by Matt Ridley in The Rational Optimist and Peter Diamandis in The Future is Better Than You Think, and Kurzweil's books and a bunch of other, some of you may have read Steven Pinker's brilliant, probably I think the best book ever written, I think, Enlightenment Now, why the case for reason, science, progress, and humanism, all of which basically acknowledge the realities of some of the challenges that you refer to, but also kind of zoom back and show how human ingenuity has managed to deal with challenges in the past and will probably continue to deal with challenges in the future. And I would respectfully suggest that you may be right, but if you sign up for cryonics and society falls apart and you don't wake up, you won't know. On the other hand, you've become a member of the control group instead of the experimental group. And some of us think it makes sense to be a member of the experimental group because the control group doesn't look like it's doing particularly well. If you're concerned about society is legitimate. I'm not being dismissive of that. I think it's probably easier for some people to focus on some of the challenging negatives instead of the remarkable positives that are emerging that look like we may be able to fix some of the very issues you refer to. Does that make sense?
Well, I understand. I'm familiar with Steven Pinker and some of the other people.
Great book suggestions, by the way. I need to check those out.
The thing is, also we're going to be challenged with artificial intelligence that will be billions or trillions of times more capable than humans. It's
going to be interesting. Maybe they'll be able to figure out how to get our sound right in less than an hour and a half.
That is quite a technological marvel, then.
Except we won't have three, but we would have three pieces of technology. We'll have 50. Imagine 50 pieces of technology, each with their own inputs. I know you must have thought I was being completely obnoxious and annoyingly ignorant when I couldn't. You asked me to plug the good sound quality microphone into my iPad. You think, well, you surely have. They're both Apple products. They surely have the same interface. Well, goddamn it, they don't. This interface does not go in the iPad. That's there. See there's.
You'll need the adapter.
That's what causes part of the problem.
Yeah, it's trying to put firewire. What is it? USB-C.
This is a firewire. You know what? Maybe that proves your point, Les. I think we can agree that life is certainly going to be complicated. It's already complicated, and there's a lot of people who are decent, smart people who are simply completely overwhelmed. And I get that. I was close to it an hour and a half ago, and we couldn't get our tech working.
Apple claims to be trying to save the environment by not putting chargers in their the most recent iPhones. But if they really wanted to save the environment, they would make it so you wouldn't overcharge your battery. Right now, if you put your phone on a charger, it could turn off when it's like 75 or 80%, or should be able to set the charge level.
So we got a couple more questions coming in here. So Hillary says, I'm imagining people from the year 1000 AD coming back now, which would be the equivalent of waking cryonauts up in the year 3000. How will these people be able to adjust to all the changes in society? Someone coming back today from 1000 AD would probably have a difficult time functioning. And Hillary, next time you should definitely come on and say all that.
Oh yeah, Hillary, I think that is a terrific and reasonable question. It's a question that I would call, it's not a superficial objection. It's a legitimate, honest concern. And here's there's no simple response to that. But let me ask, and let's just think of an equivalent. And let's not even say 1000 AD. Let's take a real, Cro-Magnon caveman. If we could have a Cro-Magnon caveman, you think we could, would we be interested? If we could bring him back, would we be interested to do so? I think there'd be people that certainly would wish to do that. Additionally, he's going to be completely, he would not understand how to get the right cord on his Apple machine. But,
we could be able to figure it out.
If assuming that his brain is pretty much the same as ours, there's we could probably work with him. The future may have, I think certainly will have, on-ramps to basically being integrated into society again. It will certainly be a new culture shock, I acknowledge. But people handle culture shocks all the time. People come from other countries and learn new languages. And imagine if the technology that we have here in this machine now is all of a sudden transportable, where it literally plugs into your brain. We've all seen The Matrix. And do you remember that great scene where he asked, Neo asked that female lead, well, can you fly a helicopter? And she downloads all the information.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now I can.
Yeah.
So basically, that may be responsive to your question.
Yeah, just don't get a virus in that thing.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. We got less making sure that we remember all the negatives so any positive we generate.
He's a yin to our yang.
I have a hard time deciding what to do. If we can bring people back intact and functional, and if the world didn't come to an end, I still have a hard time deciding if I want to come back as a full human being or as a Borg.
Yeah, that's a good question. and in the Alcor paperwork, actually, I can't dig it out of my stack of paperwork here, but there's the new iteration asks really fine-pointed questions like that. Are you interested in being in a different? What kind of substrate would you prefer? Would you like a robot body, or would you be happy to be just straight software, or do you want to come back in a biological human form?
Wow, what a question!
Yeah, it's and that's, I think it's an open question, but meanwhile, how interesting to have the option.
But how about this? We're going to live in a world where we have AI that's trillions of times more capable at solving problems and also figuring out how to deceive people if they're interested in it. How is anyone going to be able to comprehend what's going on when you have every second of your life there's AI that's got multiple years of processing, figuring out how to deceive you?
But why in the world would it? We don't have to assume that super intelligence is automatically malevolent or evil. I'm not sure that's a reasonable assumption. Well, in fact, there's a whole lot of smart people trying to figure out a way to make super intelligence that will be basically compliant with humanistic values.
Right now, AI is essentially in the hands of in control by people. So if you have malevolent people and they're using software to trick people, which is done currently, how are you going to eliminate that?
I don't think you will. Here's a generic response to much of what your observations have been. It's not original with me by any means. In the book, The Beginning of Infinity, Deutsch, David Deutsch, I think his name, who's an Oxford researcher, has a brilliant, quick summation of things. Basically, problems are inevitable, but problems are solvable. And that is my generic response to a lot of the hand waving of we're gonna have problems in the future. Yeah, we are. We have problems now. Are so inconsequential compared to the problems people had 100 years ago. 100 years ago, the average, I don't know if you're older than 42. I know I am. The average person died at 42 around the turn of the last century. Before that, they had horrific, terrible diseases, smallpox, disease that we've now eliminated from the planet altogether. I mean, how many people, why don't we see headlines saying that people are better housed, better fed, better clothed, have more options today than they've ever had? That should be a headline. Instead, it's not. Boring stuff. We just expect it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Instead, we focus on something. Well, there's going to be, we got more complications, and the AI is going to all eat it, turn us into paper clips. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
I believe Julie had a question as well. Julie, if you'd like to pop on, you're muted right now. So,
hi, Julie.
Have you ever not been able to wake someone up? And if so, what were the conditions?
Yeah, well, right now we have about 100% of the folks we cannot wake them up. So the cryonics is basically a ticket to a future technology that will be able to revive or wake us up. You can use the term wake us up, or revive us, or resuscitate, basically bring us back to the cryogenic state. And so that is the whole concept of cryonics, is that it sends us to a future technology that can fix what we died of and fix the damage caused by the process itself.
Okay.
And we think there's a reasonable chance that will happen, but we can't guarantee it. So is that responsive to your question?
Yeah, I realize you probably said it, but you were going that far out. I didn't know, how you'll have something coming down the pike a few years. It's just not ready. So
yes, we don't know exactly when, resuscitation will be occurring for many people. It's probably likely that it's called last in, first out, if you guys are familiar with LIFO accounting, because the more recent people that are cryopreserved with a better technology, whereas the earlier ones, James Bedford, for instance, the first man who was cryopreserved in 1976. Is that right? Yeah, but 1967, because it was the year after Disney died, who, by the way, was not cryopreserved. Anyway, James Bedford was cryopreserved on February the 12th, and he was still celebrating Bedford Day, and he is still cryopreserved at Alcor. but he was not cryopreserved utilizing the kind of technology we have now. So he'll probably be among the last to be resuscitated because it's going to take a lot of basically miraculous technology, and the AGIs that are not turning us into paper clips will hopefully be there to handle the problems of resuscitation.
That'd be nice if we don't get turned to paper clips or ice cubes for too long. For too long. I did want to give a shout out to Everett. Everett's the guy that I had mentioned that had passed away for 6 hours straight. So I know you had a question for him, but he's here if he can hop on and you guys can have a brief little chat. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully you can figure out.
There he is.
There we go.
Hello,
there we go.
Mr. Everett. Oh, I'd be very interested in here. Can I?
Sorry, I jumped on a little late. My phone has been a little busy in the late hours so far.
Hey, we're still here, and I'm glad to have a chance to talk with you. Could you tell me about the details? You were legally pronounced dead for 6 hours. Is that correct?
Over 6 hours, yes, I was.
That is intriguing. Obviously, these people already heard that. I don't want to, be redundant, but could you quickly summarize, what the documentation or what the circumstances were?
So they actually don't know what made me, of course, cold and end up flatlining. They suspect that it could have just been that I was given a substance that I was not supposed to have been given before surgery.
Oh, you were in the hospital during a surgery? Was that what that circumstance?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
So they think I was given a substance before surgery that may have caused it. They also think it could have just been complications of the anesthesia, not knowing exactly how much to give me because of the brain tumor. And they just misestimated how much to give me. But ultimately, they don't know what caused me to end up flatlining. And,
wow, so your heart was stopped? Were you in a heart machine, or were you?
So my heart was stopped. All brain activity was flat. And I was pretty much there. The first time I had passed away and died, I went into a seizure. And it was a massive seizure. As they tried to get the air pipe down my throat, my jaw locked. My whole body locked up in the middle of the seizure. And when my body stopped shaking, they tried to open my mouth. My mouth would not open for a number of minutes before they were able to, of course, get the pipe down my throat. And once they got the pipe down my throat, my lungs was able to, have the air going through it. And then in the middle of them working on me, my lungs completely collapsed.
Wow.
And they could not get them to, of course, inflate for some time. And this was like pretty much right after they finished the surgery. My lungs collapsed.
That is remarkable. So you were actually, did the surgery go okay? Did they go ahead and get a brain, you had a tumor in your brain that they pulled out?
Oh, that's it. That is inoperable. But I went in for gallbladder surgery, which was supposed to be routinely fast. It was anything but fast.
Wow. Yeah, that is definitely anything but fast.
If you guys are on YouTube, the name of the video is called "Dying and Seeing Heaven."
Woohoo! Interesting. Outstanding. Well, you were a wild man. I don't think I've ever talked with anybody who's been dead for 6 hours. You're my very
Now
first
you have.
every 6 hour person.
Six plus hours.
Your brain seems to be fine. So you're talking articulately and okay.
Yeah, and he's still smart.
I think death made me smarter.
Yeah.
So,
and how about those AIs? We know those AIs are going to be smarter.
well, I'm hoping that, I know that heaven doesn't have an intention on turning us into paper clips, so I'm fairly happy.
That's a good point. No paper clips,
Yeah.
no paper clips.
If I'm going to come back, I'd like to be a coffee machine.
You're an interesting guy. You're Everett O'Neill. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, excellent. Well, nice to meet you, Everett. Thank you for that interesting share. I appreciate that.
I'm going to say, Everett, every time you say something, I can perceive that the truth is coming out of you.
Oh, praise God. Thank you, man.
He's a
You speak the
truthful
truth.
guy.
Listen, I'm at this point, I'm scared to sit there and lie to people because I don't want to go to the other place.
There we go. Valid point. Oh, by the way, we also have another surprise person on here who will be in the future. I'll be interviewed on AQ. His name is Dallas. Dallas, do you want to pop in and say what your experience is with? Because I know you know Rudy.
Yeah, actually. Hi, everyone. This is Dallas speaking. Hi, Rudy. How are you?
Hey, good.
I learned about cryonics from a friend, and at first I thought it was crazy. Like, come on, what is this, Austin Powers, your Dr. Evil, just freezing himself so you can just know the world in the future? And he's like, just check it out. So I go to do just that. I'm someone who doesn't just take things off face value. I actually do the research on things. I went on and I came back to him and I said, okay, there might be something to this, but how can you afford it? Seems like it would be extremely expensive. He's like, not at all. Actually, I can hook you up with the guy. He gave me Rudy's info. I contacted him. And then it took a few months to get all the paperwork run through, but I finally got it. And then I hit up the Cryonics Institute and I'm signed up with them as well. So I am officially a yearly insurance holder of Cryonic Insurance, as well as a member of the Cryonics Institute. And as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a worthwhile risk.
Dallas has a Kansas City Life 20-year level term for $250,000. It's $307 a year. And that's the actual story. He pays annually, $307 a year. And your membership dues at the Cryonics Institute are $120 a year. You know, this is not something that just wealthy.com gazillionaires do. This is, we have people who serve coffee at Starbucks or who are software engineers, who are basically, we have people from all walks of life who sign up for Cryonics. Now, that doesn't mean everybody can afford it, but if you got some reasonable resources, you're serious, we could probably find a way to make it work.
I think Dallas will be okay. He joined us when we did our crypto video on attracting wealth abundantly, and that was about crypto. So he's pretty set on crypto. He'll be all right.
Abundance mentality is, something that many times I used to think that was just new agey woo woo stuff, and I finally realizing that it's kind of big thinking. The people who are smart enough to think big, to execute big, to basically have possibility thinking. All that goes in, and it's not just fuzzy brain, hippie-esque, new age stuff. It's legitimately effective, smart business people think different than, different folks. So it's trainable. These are all trainable skills. I've been trying to train myself to be a better, more effective executive, and finally worked after about a zillion years of uncommon dues paying. I finally got rich in the last couple of years, which is fun.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I also want to congratulate Dallas for being our first official AQ cryonaut, by the way.
Yeah,
congrats.
AQ cryonaut, Dallas.
We'll be doing an interview with Dallas called Creating is Godlike. So be looking out for that in the next coming weeks to months. So the other thing I wanted to mention, if I can remember, so many things just running through my head. It'll come back to me. Please continue.
Well, I probably think that then we can put this conversation at some point into the win column. And please know that I would be honored to be of service in any way that I can. I can't solve every problem that you may have, but the problem of maybe trying to overcome death might be one that it might be on in your brain at some point. And if this is a fit, that'd be okay. And if we know that it may not be, which is also all right. But at least you kind of checked it out. You might, at a minimum, you learn something. You can share. You can share it with your friends. You can all have a big chuckle about it because everything's a learning experience.
Yeah, and I'm also interested because I know you wrote the book on it, Avoiding Death and Taxes. How do you avoid the taxes part?
Oh yeah, that is what's also kind of neat. Life insurance, the cash value part of life insurance, grows tax free. Not just the death benefits tax free. In other words, I got $3 million of life insurance on me. If I die right now, there's $3 million through 11 policies that go to a series of somebodies, all of it tax free. On top of that, there's a cash accumulation in the life insurance policies. Right now, I'm a couple $100,000, under a couple $100,000, but it's a pretty substantial amount of money that I can pull out tax free while I'm alive. So it's tax-free growth inside the policy. And that's why I explained death and taxes. So it's also designed to be a direct response to Ben Franklin's statement about there's one thing certain in this world, death and taxes.
Maybe not so much anymore, Mr. Franklin.
Refutation of my main man, Ben Franklin.
There you go. And he's on the cover right there. I like it. And it'd be amazing to find a way to make that work and to have a bunch of crypto and just sit tightly. You'll be all right for a good while. You'll wake up rich.
Yeah, I think crypto is the future. I'm on board, and a whole lot of other good people are as well. And I think it's helpful if good people have resources and money. I had to be a fan of Bill Gates. I think he's done incredible work, and here he's made a boatload of money, and he's doing a bunch of great things with it. That the billionaires and millionaires who are basically doing really good things with their money is one of the more exciting, positive things happening on the planet.
I would say the best one is definitely Elon Musk, though. He's definitely on a whole other game.
Brilliant guy.
Oh, John, it looks like you're about to pop on.
I'd love to have him as a public cryonicist, by the way. If any of you guys know him, hook me up. I'd be happy to get I'd love to.
I would love to one day get him on the show.
Into Elon.
I would definitely love to get him on the show one day. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. And I want to get him on as a signed out of the closet cryonicist, which would be, I'm also interested in other thought leaders, especially if like they're intellectuals or public, scientists or, or public skeptics, public. We believe we're in favor of skeptics, right? This is not a cult of true believers. It's just
right.
It's a smart thing to do. It's not that we are convinced it's completely going to work no matter what. It seems like a smarter thing to do than the alternative. So I realize that.
I think if you have the economic resources to do it, then it's probably not a bad idea. But
thank you, Les. I'll drink to your enthusiastic endorsement.
Yeah, there we go. We finally got one. Good job, Les.
I would say that probably, there's technology. People are working on reversing the aging process. And I think that that'd probably be a better alternative if you had to choose one or the other.
Well, that's the important point. We don't have to choose. So they're both of a piece of trying to figure out how to extend life. So we're on the same page. That's why I speak at anti-aging conferences. It's not we're all. It's basically if any of us who feel like it'd be really nice if we didn't age and die, can all be on the same page together. We may have different modalities, but some of them may be more effective than others. But that's why I participate in the Rad Fest, because it's a big tent. There's some flaky, nutty people that go to that. I'll be honest with you, that I don't relate to at all. But they are all, the whole group as a whole is people trying to figure out how do we be better humans? How do we live longer, better lives? And that's, that's important for all of us. So I think we can be on the same page in that one.
I need to check out.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye at some point, if that's all right with you folks.
Yeah. We'll close out soon. I think we have one final question. John, did you have a question?
Me?
Yeah.
Let me see. I apologize. I had to step away for a phone call, but I'm back now. So.
Oh, good.
I have a question.
Oh, go for it, Everett. All right, we'll end with Everett's question then.
So my question to you, Rudy, would be, why are you in search of immortality?
Okay, that's a reasonable question. So I think life is good, and I want to do what I can do to extend it. Unlike yourself, I'm I'm very uncertain about what might happen if my body and brain would not be around. My speculation is that it's nothing. But I believe in life, and I could be wrong. I see Julie shaking her head. Okay, Julie. I am happy to be endorsing what I would consider enlightenment values, which is science, evidence. And I'm not sure there's a whole lot of clear-cut, unassailable evidence that, that we survive without our brains. So I could be wrong. And there are people who are signed up for cryonics who are very traditional religious folks, I happen to not be. In terms of answer your question, Everett, I happen to love life, and I want to find a way to extend it. I got Julie shaking her head positively now.
Yeah, well,
Julie,
that's true, though.
I like when you do this. This is good. This is bad.
So I know where you stand. She's a professional emotive person.
It's nice when you're transparent. You're honest and transparent. I like you a lot. Plus, you're good.
Thank you. Well, I was thinking. So, do you believe in afterlife? I won't assume.
No, I don't believe I do. Hope I don't. Hope no one's going to throw. Hope I don't get thrown out of anybody's heart, including yours.
Oh no, it's okay.
No,
here we accept everybody. We love everybody. We accept
They're
everybody.
different strokes. Different. By the way, I used to. So and I grew up in a very fine, wonderful, ethical, religious family, and they're wonderful people, and I have not thrown them out of my heart by any means, but I have not found a whole lot of evidence that their particular belief structure and theology was anything other than a cultural construct. But again, I'm not trying to be negative about anybody else's belief structure.
The closest thing I have to immortality is living in the multiverse.
I like the multiverse idea. You may have read Brian Greene's or another physicist, Max Tegmark. I almost got the book here. I can't quite grab it without getting off.
Yeah, I mean, we could have an infinite number of universes, and
it may be happening now. They're splitting off right now.
If we have an infinite number of universes, then you're by definition immortal.
Or we could have an infinite amount of simulations too.
I don't think the consciousness ever dies. I think we continue. Our consciousness just keeps going. So the body.
I like to think that, to base my ideas on scientific evidence.
I agree. Well, there's a whole lot of ways of looking at that particular one, and I think that may be a bigger can of worms we can deal with at this point in the evening. I genuinely thank each of you for being here, and Gabriel, thank you very much for pulling this together. You guys are really interesting, cool people.
Thank you.
Been honored to be with you. Have a lovely life, and hope to talk with you at some point in the future.
All right.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and wisdom. Thank everyone for showing up and for being open, honest, and loving.